lineup of speakers to talk about all the wonderful things that have been happening in downtown, things that we want to be happening in downtown, and of course, the very land on which downtown sits and stands. And so buckle in for education, for an inspiration, and for an aspiration today. But I only do one thing sort of good, and it's read poems. And so is it okay if I give you one? All right. It's actually a rap, but then it turns into a poem. Whatever, you follow. You follow. Known for more than what we cook, we take it back to the crops. Got that garden in his jeans, his pops got from his pops. Started from the bottom, kept it flat on the top. Got bricks older than adobe, take it back to the block. Started from the border, now we here is the motto. Now my whole team's here, it's sorta like a Matanza. My town lit like a bonfire on the horizon, like a burner at Balloon Fiesta glow on a Friday, where we name our tattoo artists as our favorite writers, and every wall tell a story like our favorite novel, where the air a bit thinner so our blood a little thicker, never catch us holding our tongue, but we can hold our liquor. Pour some in the river for the ancestors within us. My city got so much spirits, fill an aquifer within us. Pour some in the river for the ancestors we missing. My city got so much spirit, fill an aquifer within us. I said, my town is the greatest. When they said, make Albuquerque great again. Never scared like the Pueblo revolt, made Albuquerque brave again. Where the creation stories create us, so don't be surprised when we fancy ourselves story creators in God's own image. So pray you pardon our transition to Mother Nature. We, transgender, translanguage, transnation, and transracial. Translation, raza cósmica. We might as well be the Zia symbol for transportation. Might as well, big I, our third eye, north, south, east, west. Been a bullseye for migration ever since we rat-a-tat-tat-tat-tatted that codex on our chest. My city, relentless. Where the living is more, but the rent's less. Where piece of land has always meant peace of mind, and my parcientes understand that the Cibola Coronado can never find was buried deep down inside the people he never mined. My city, 5,300 feet above sea level, so believe me when I say you can't see us. My city been greater than great again since Albuquerque was Tiwa. Whether food, weather, or people, there are no wrong reasons to fall for all our seasons. My city got limitless vistas with no visas, make believers that are non-believers, turn I-have-a-dreamers into mere mortal human beings. I suppose you could just blame our skies that don't quit. We right at home with those ideas that don't fit, where God put the goalposts so far apart that our prayers always go in them, where the table is always set to welcome saints and sinners, where it's never Last Supper because there's always another feast. Pound for pound, my city be the greatest, pretty champ like Ali. His mama named him Clay, and yeah, we got that pottery, got that more in our blood like we done found little Steve. So many Urkels in the lab that you could call us Sandia. Throw it up for my city if you down for my people. Thank you, Albuquerque. I share a poem about one of my favorite muses, this city, and that last image was me actually a few blocks down when we shot the original video for that song. I want to shout out my collaborative partner there, Umar UIM. He's a native, a Pakistani-American native to Albuquerque, but I think he's doing his clinical, he's going to be a doctor one day, and he's on the West Coast right now. But yeah, the things that you get inspired to write when you're just sitting on a corner in downtown. I felt like that was a good place to begin today. I want to let you also know that when you leave after filling out your Valentine and exchanging that for a beverage, I'm sure there are non-alcoholic options as well, that when you leave, make sure to take a picture of this beautiful building. Can we get a round of applause for the Chemo Theater? Yeah. I mean, I used to work in this department, and this chemo has seen some things, we could tell you, but it's still standing. Thank you to the staff and the team, the chemo. But when you leave, besides taking a beautiful picture or selfie under the marquee, make sure you take a selfie by the work that Wemfer is working on. Ness Wemfer is live painting outside, you know, because in some cities we paint on walls, and it's beautiful. And so he's gonna be doing that outside. Make sure you catch that. That's just for this event. I wanna shout out ABQ Art Walk. If you've ever down here on the first Friday, you know what it's like. So give a shout out to Gabe and Jacqueline, because they are representing Art Walk and will be the recipients of the proceeds from this evening. I think we're gonna hit, we might be above the 3,000 mark now, but that doesn't mean stop. There's always room for more. And then, of course, making events like these happen, we want to thank my homies at the Department of Arts and Culture, which is also the Chemo Theater and the Special Events team, Red Door Brewery, Slate Street Cafe, which means there will be food, I'm imagining. Yes, okay. Just want to make sure it's on the memo. Metropolitan Redevelopment Agency, really the muscle of this thing right now today, Sarah, Omega, Saren, and Karen. The Albuquerque Community Foundation, who will have some words today, but we want to thank Denise, Nava, and Clarissa Earl, and the Chamber of Commerce, which will also have some words today, Chelsea Pitvorek. I hope I didn't mess that up, Chelsea. And I'm just scanning the audience. I do see Councilor Benton, and it's dark out there. So we want to acknowledge all of our VIPs and the people who like us, and I still do, even though I don't work for the city anymore, the people who think about this building and this part of the city and this town all the time. We thank you for your service. And so now, we gonna do what it do. If you know anything about the history of this building, you know, besides the architectural pieces in the Albuquerque family, you know that the ornamentation, the ornateness is a nod to indigenous culture. But before there was a building, there were people on this land. So I would like to bring up Alicia Ortega from Santa Clara and Bojaque Pueblo, who is the co-director of Native Women Lead, to lead us in a land acknowledgement.
Umbiakindi, Sengitiri, na Alicia Ortega Angomu, Hera Navitewa, Hawayanse Povi, Hera Posuage Owinge, Hera Kapo Owinge Warangomu, Hangho Hichampo, Neta Undari, Iweke Koriri. With respect to you all, good afternoon, beautiful people. My name is Alicia Ortega, and my Tewa name is Evergreen Blossom. I'm from the pueblos of Pojoaque and Santa Clara, where I grew up in northern New Mexico, born and raised, but I reside here in Tewa territory for the past 18 years. And I appreciate the opportunity to introduce myself to you all in my native language, which is Tewa, one of the 7 historically spoken languages here in New Mexico, along with Tiwa, Towa, Keres, Zuni, Navajo, and the Apache languages, all of which are spoken by the 23 Pueblos, tribes, and nations that are represented here in New Mexico, which include the 19 Pueblos, as well as our sister Pueblo, Isleta del Sur, which was relocated to El Paso, Texas, as well as the Navajo Nation and the Jicarilla, Mescalero, and Fort Sill Apache nations. I also want to recognize our native relatives from throughout Turtle Island, representing over 400 nations that reside here in the city of Albuquerque, making the city of Albuquerque the 6th largest Native American population in the United States. I also want to acknowledge and thank our relatives of Southern Tewa Territory, which is the Isleta and Sandia Pueblo peoples, who have been the original caretakers and stewards of these lands since time immemorial. And as we gather here today with open minds and open hearts to heal, strengthen, and build a brighter future for generations to come of the city and this space, it's important to acknowledge and educate ourselves on the lands of which we stand upon. And I want to say thank you to my colleagues and friends, Jake and Kalika, for inviting me here today to do just that with you all. I'm very blessed to be able to work with Jake and Kalika and our awesome teams every day, really. As mentioned, a co-founder and co-director at an organization called Native Women Lead, which is headquartered here in the heart of downtown. The beautiful Occidental building located on 3rd and Gold, where we share space with our sister organization, New Mexico Community Capital, which you'll all hear more about shortly. But with that, I just want to say Kunta Waha. Thank you so much for giving me some time and sharing space with me. And I'm going to hand it back over to Hakeem to get this party started. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. Like all of you here today, you're here because you care about downtown, you care about civic life and like the richness and the fabric of civic life. And you know, there's, as I said earlier, there's people who have to think about that 24/7, or at least, 5 out of 7 days a week. And those people like you are called stakeholders, right? You have an investment in your community and in your culture and in spaces like these. And in Albuquerque, we've got some pretty invested folks. And so to speak about it from the commerce end, because you can't have a downtown really. Peter will know better because Peter's the expert, but you can't really have a downtown without that element of business and commerce. I would like to invite up one of our partners in this event today, Doug Majewski of the Greater Albuquerque Chamber of Commerce, for a few remarks.
Good afternoon. As you heard, my name is Doug Majewski, and I am the chair for the Greater Albuquerque Chamber of Commerce Downtown Transformation Bold Issues Group. Thank you for being here this afternoon. As Hakeem said, your presence today reflects your passion and your aspirations for making our city better. And thank you to Peter for coming to Albuquerque to share his thoughts with us today. I am an architect who has had the privilege of designing several buildings in our downtown area. I've also had the opportunity to visit many downtowns across the world. I recognize that buildings are only one part of making a downtown great. For many years, the Greater Albuquerque Chamber of Commerce has been focused on transforming our downtown. Well, much has been accomplished through significant efforts by many, including people in this room. There's still abundant opportunity to make our downtown better. Downtowns are the souls of their communities. And I believe that all great cities have great downtowns. I also believe that great downtowns should be great neighborhoods and great places to live, work, and play. The Greater Albuquerque Chamber of Commerce is pleased to be one of the sponsors, bringing Peter here today to share his unique perspective with us. I've had the pleasure of spending some time with him over the last couple days, and I think you'll really be entertained and inspired by what he has to say. I believe that the success of this event will be measured by the actions of all of us here and who are not in the room, who continue to take efforts to improve our downtown after Peter has left us. So thank you again from the Chamber of Commerce, and please enjoy the presentation.
Thank you so much, Dan, for representing the Chamber. Another category of stakeholder that just your random resident poet thinks that is an important part of any rich fabric of a downtown is the philanthropic sector. We're fortunate to have lots of family foundations and foundations investing in our city and in this area, but we also have one that lives just around the corner. So I want to give a little bit of time for Joaquin Moya to come bring some remarks from the Albuquerque Community Foundation.
Thank you, Hakeem. Good afternoon, and buenas tardes. My name is Joaquin Moya. I'm the Vice President of Philanthropic Advising at the Albuquerque Community Foundation. On behalf of the foundation, I want to start with gratitude and thank the City of Albuquerque and the Greater Albuquerque Chamber of Commerce for partnering with us to bring Peter Kagayama here to Albuquerque to share his message of the way cities can think about themselves in a relationship with residents. A community foundation is an important aspect of creating a thriving community. The Albuquerque Community Foundation administers a permanent community endowment composed of many gifts to make grants to other nonprofit organizations. Since our establishment in 1981, our total grant making has been $74 million to nonprofit organizations serving the greater Albuquerque area. We are rooted in Albuquerque. Our office is located downtown, and we have invested in Albuquerque for over 40 years. During COVID, we changed our grant making to include more unrestricted funding, and we are committed to making large impact grants in an inclusive and equitable way. When you think of the Albuquerque Community Foundation, we hope you'll think of these 3 words: leadership, trust, and legacy. The Albuquerque Community Foundation is the community's foundation. At its core, philanthropy is about the love for humanity, and there are various ways it can look. We all have something common here. We want to see our community and everyone in it thrive. Together we are stronger, and our love for Albuquerque is essential to the health and progress of our community. Thank you again for joining us here today to learn about ways that we can help our community thrive. Thank you.
Omega's back here keeping me on schedule. The notes are keeping me on task. Again, I know as I'm trying to peek back there to catch a few more VIPs. You're all VIPs, by the way, but I will be remiss if I didn't acknowledge, I think I saw my Director of Arts and Culture walk in, Dr. Shell Sanchez. That you over there, Shell? Like, these glasses don't work so well sometimes. And I know also in the house is my former coworker, Deputy Director Brandon Gibson, so I want to give them a nod. They help make sure the chemo is ready for events like this. So let's give them a little round of applause. So I get the pleasure of introducing a friend. This friend and former boss, is that, you need more clues than that? He's also on the flyer. I'll give you one more clue. You know, one of the things he tasked our department with, it's fitting I mentioned Shell and Brandon, was trying to figure out a way to figure out what the linearity of city leadership has been over the years, right? All the way back to the founding families, and we thank, you know, Alicia for coming and telling us what was going on before the founding families even arrived, but a way to kind of put that in context. You know, if you look up Mayor Tim Keller, I think Wikipedia might say something like he's the 30th or 31st mayor of this city. By the research we found, and we actually hired real historians to do it, it wasn't just me, Shell and Brandon, like doing the research, but the historians that we worked with, as well as a stellar team at the Albuquerque Museum, formerly the Albuquerque Museum of Art and History, they accounted for actually him being the 81st person, elected or non-elected, to lead the city, right? And so I want to put that in context because it feels like that's important as we talk about where we've been before we talk about where we're going, and that he feels that history is important as well, and that's why he wants to document it and figure out a way to correct the record. So always appreciated that about Tim. I've also known him a long time. I've known him when he was a state senator. I lived in his district at that time, and we did some work together around creating healthy communities on that side of town. And then he went on to be the state auditor. His jurisdiction was just a little bit bigger when he took that job. And then he came to be he's in his second term as the mayor of Albuquerque. So y'all know who he is, but I wanted to give you a little context to that connection and introduce my friend, Mayor Timothy Keller.
Well, good afternoon, Albuquerque. And of course, as some of us like to say, good afternoon, Burque. Great to see everyone here. And wonderful to sort of reinvigorate our discussions about Albuquerque's downtown. And I thought I would just paint a little bit of a perspective as we go into our keynote speaker, who literally has written a book on the love of cities. And so you'll hear more about it later. But we know in this town, right, we do love our city. Sometimes it's that sort of family type love where you get in arguments, or maybe sometimes you're like, I really wish we weren't at the same dinner table tonight. Because we know we've got challenges, right? We know that too in our city, and we're facing some deep challenges now. And I know he's been recognized before, but I see our city councilor, downtown councilor Ike Benton, here with us, and as an architect, he knows this too. But look, our challenges in many ways, sometimes they're very deeply rooted, going back to that history that Hakeem talked about. And sometimes they're modern incarnations, and we have both of those layered upon layers of history and of people and of culture in Albuquerque. That's who we are, and we love who we are, even if there's parts of us that we want to change, parts of us that we need to work on and help out a little bit. That's how I view downtown. So I remember in my own lifetime, not really appreciating the fact that downtown was Newtown. So, there was Old Town, which we call Old Town. That was downtown until the railroads came. And then all of a sudden this new area of the city grew up, and it became what now we call as downtown because of the railroads. And then, of course, we had, why were those tracks there? Just as a quick homage, part of that was because Camino Real ran right through here because it was a clearer passage than following so close to the river. But then we had Route 66, right? Then the Mother Road comes through in the turn of the century in the 20s. And of course, that creates our Main Street. That creates sort of the modern incarnation of downtown beyond just the railroad station. Now, in that era, of course, there were all sorts of vibrancy, and some folks who've been here might remember this, but I always heard stories of like department stores downtown. I mean, we never had that in my lifetime. But I want to let you know, of course, this was a strong, vibrant downtown, as it was in many places in America, really up until the 80s. I actually do remember the 80s. And I will tell you, I remember being afraid to go downtown. I remember also loving downtown in high school when I could go to the bars, even though I wasn't 21. So, look, downtown has also been a lot of fun for a long time. And I also remember the 90s, we obviously, we'll talk about public safety a little bit, but I have these great pictures on cameras, like before digital cameras. And they're pictures from when I was more or less 21 and would come down here. And I remember I would come home. I went away to college, so I'd come back for Christmas. And I'd go meet my high school friends and college friends in downtown Albuquerque at Anodyne, still there. And I'd be like, wow, this town is incredible. The streets are filled with partiers at 1 a.m. And I just want to remind everyone, because I know, again, we'll talk about some of our challenges now, but it was tough then too. And actually, we had in that era, sort of going sort of 1999-ish to maybe 2010, we were very fortunate. We had, frankly, some visionaries at the city as employees. We had mayors who believed in downtown, emphasis on plural mayors. We had city councilors who believed in downtown. And we had a general city consensus that we had to invest in downtown. That era is what created the downtown that you see now, which is the redone Alvarado Transportation Center, which none of us think of as redone because this was like 30 years ago. But I remember when that was redone. I remember when the movie theater came, which of course is now closed. But I remember also when we invested in all of the built environment around there and reinvested in buying things like this theater, the Chemo. So I just want to acknowledge that era, I think, saved downtown in Albuquerque. So those of you who are a part of it, or those of you who weren't, if we had not made those investments back in that era, we would have nothing almost to build from. Downtown truly would have died. But we did that, and of course, somewhere in that era too was the last two new skyscrapers we got, right, the two pyramid buildings. That era saved downtown. And actually, we traded on that for a good 20 years, where even though downtown needed help, it was safer. It had at least minimum levels of activity, whether it's hotel rooms, convention center, and all of these things. And we've been able to keep downtown alive. That is a good thing. And so I want to acknowledge kind of where we're at now. Again, we'll talk about some of the problems, but the good news is we still have a downtown to work on. And a lot of cities lost theirs or they gutted theirs. Ours is still alive. And if it's Art Walk on Fridays, which we talked about earlier, I encourage you to see that. Or if it's joining me for a heavy metal concert, our downtown is vibrant. It's got its challenges, but I will tell you, it comes alive, just like other downtowns. And it comes alive in a way that I think in many ways, not in every way, but in many ways, does compete with Austin and with Denver and with other cities. The question is, how do we make that accessible regularly? And how do we make it the centerpiece of the state's largest city? The largest city in 1,000 square miles is Albuquerque. And of course, that heartbeat in that radius is our downtown. Now, of course, we're coming on the heels of the pandemic. Look, downtowns are once again being crushed all over the country because of work from home or because wider workspace, all of these issues that are facing downtown. So now we actually have like a sort of a new challenge that is paired with a new opportunity. Because as troubled as downtowns are in office spaces and high-rise condominiums and high-rise workplaces, we do know that we're in a much better place than all our neighbors for the first time in a long time. So compared to Phoenix, Denver, Austin, all of a sudden, we do have space that's available. Yes, prices are on the rise, but they're nothing like those cities. We also know we don't have the traffic issues we have, that they have. And we also know that because of our city and the way it's built, you could also leave downtown and recreate in the Bosque within 10 minutes. And that's something that those downtowns desperately struggle with. So we're actually sitting in a really good place, right? We have enough to build on. All of a sudden we have a competitive advantage that we didn't have pre-pandemic compared to these other cities. And so that's why we're convening us together. This is part of a broader initiative over the spring and summer for a community opportunity to think about what we can do to lift up our downtown. The city is working on this, but so is the Community Foundation, so is the sponsors that you've heard from. And we want everyone who cares, not just lives, everyone who cares about downtown, which I think should be the whole state of New Mexico, everyone who cares about downtown to participate in that process. And so what we're going to be doing over the next few weeks is we're going to roll out a series of ideas. They're just starting places. And they're things like, okay, what do we actually do about public safety downtown? And how do we actually make sure that we're not just enforcing, the most minimum things like we can't have shootings and military-grade weapons downtown, but how do we actually make sure that we're not having stolen cars, that we're not having drive-bys, but also how do we make sure that we celebrate cruising culture? Because that is part of who we are, and that's part of what we love. So we're going to be rolling out ideas around this, and we want your feedback, we want your input on how to balance these issues out. Similarly, around homelessness and even vacant buildings, we're going to say, well, how can we make sure and maintain our historic culture and our historic buildings and fill them up, but make sure that we're not tearing them down and that we're not gentrifying. We don't want to do that. But we do want to make sure that the gizmo isn't empty for another 20 years. Right? And we want to make sure that we have somewhere to take homeless folks or a place where homeless folks can get help that is 24/7, which is what the Gateway Center is all about, those of you who've been following this. We have to have that. It's related to downtown because a lot of the services are nearby. So until we have services in a way that works for everyone and that is the right kind of service at the right time, there's nowhere else for people to go, or there's nowhere else we can take them on a Saturday afternoon when all of the nonprofits and all of the shelters are closed. So we're going to try and do our part as a city. I just signed our $1.4 billion budget. I want you to know it has $20+ million for housing. It has $20+ million for housing and homelessness and vouchers and everything in between. It's got $10 million to get that Gateway Center online once we get the zoning changes approved. So we're going to keep pushing forward. And so stay tuned for more about how to move Albuquerque downtown forward. So with that, we're still in the listening and learning stages, as we're going to be for the next 6 months. But that's why our next speaker is so important, because we've got a lot to learn from other places in the country, but we also know we have a lot to learn from each other. And that's really what this is part of. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to our MCs. And thank you all so much for coming. Thank you all so much for caring about downtown in Albuquerque. Thank you so much.
Mayors are hard act to follow, yet follow we will. Before Peter comes up and gives us some, helps us chew on, turn upside down, spin around, some really exciting ideas about what we can do, we should also talk about what we're already doing right. And what's a great example of that is going to be our next pair of speakers from New Mexico Community Capital, Henry Jake Foreman and Kalika Davis. So I'm gonna properly introduce them, and then they're going to come tell you a little bit about New Mexico Community Capital and why that work is important, and mainly why it's working here. Kalika Tulu Davis is Diné and Southern Ute and has a diverse cultural, educational, and entrepreneurial background. She is the communications and social media strategist at New Mexico Community Capital and co-founder of Native Women Lead, one of the fastest growing indigenous women-led organizations in New Mexico. Kalika also owned and operated Saloon Talu, an all-organic hair salon and wellness boutique for 7 years in Nob Hill, Albuquerque. She continues to be passionate about grassroots community organizing through enhancing relationships and building hoso, beauty all together. Henry Jake Foreman, MCRP, Masters in Community and Regional Planning. Henry will correct me if I had that wrong. I'm an acronym guy. Is a specialist in facilitation, development, and implementation of engaging learning experiences for students of all ages, and has created a variety of curricula around education, health, and entrepreneurship. He is the founder of Karuna Colectiva, a social enterprise that delivers the principles of engagement, innovation, and application through mentorship, bicycling, and cooperative economics. He is also the program director of New Mexico Community Capital and manages multiple programs that are designed to help build a solid foundation to form and grow business ideas with a personal financial plan for success. Join me in welcoming Henry and Kalika.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Hi ho, mabuhay. My name is Henry Jake Foreman. Like Hakeem mentioned, I'm the program director of New Mexico Community Capital. We were started as a 501c3 nonprofit in 2004, and we serve to advance the next generation of Native American entrepreneurs and farmers. Our mission is to give rise to a more equitable future for indigenous communities by providing tools for success to emerging Native-owned businesses, families, and tribal enterprises. Our culturally relevant approach to technical assistance centers around mentorship, indigenous food sovereignty, and peer experiences. So I was born and bred here in Albuquerque. Who else is? Right? We all love this city. I was able to really spend a lot of my youth here in downtown, ditching from Albuquerque High School. It was a great place to come. And I'm so grateful now that I get to work downtown for the past 7 years. I just want to share a little bit about our programs. I learned about New Mexico Community Capital through their Native Entrepreneur in Residence program. It was a program that provided one-on-one mentorship for 6 months. And guess what? They also gave you seed funds of over $10,000 to grow the business. It changed my life because at the time, I was a part-time high school teacher at the Native American Community Academy. I was a graduate student at UNM in their CRP program. And this really gave me the tools that I needed to grow my business, to grow my skills. And actually, I was even able to win the UNM business plan competition, right? I was the first Native American to do that in the history. And that's what this program is about. We also have other programs that Kalika is going to mention, but I just wanted to share just a little bit more about what we do right now. We have a business and marketing essentials program that does very similar things to our NEAR program. All our programs are free. All our programs offer technology bundles. That means including computers, laptops. We provide all of the tools that entrepreneurs need, and we always provide seed funds. And we really believe that this type of program could not only benefit Native American entrepreneurs, but all entrepreneurs, right? Especially in these times, right, where we're seeing high inflation rates, we're seeing a lot of businesses close down. I see a lot of business owners right here, right now, that are working here in downtown Albuquerque, and we just want to be able to support this creativity. Lastly, I just want to add that we're working in new technology tools. Believe it or not, we created our own opportunity app. So just like your all's kind of tickets, we believe that bartership is a valid part of entrepreneurship. It's a historical thing that we've done for generations. And we also act as a fiscal sponsor for businesses like mine that's a social enterprise, right? It's not just about making a profit, but it's also giving back to the community. So we allow people a fiscal agency so that they can apply for grants. So with that, I want to share this story from my beautiful wife and creative partner. We always like to tell stories in our indigenous cultures, and I feel like this is a beautiful love story of downtown and the work that we've done. So let's give her a round of applause for Kalika Talu.
Yeah. Yat e she e Kalika Yenishe, Nahokostane Inishlin, Nakaidane e Bashishchin, Se dok ej deshache, Tat chini dashanele, At ego atsani nishlin. Hello everyone, my name is Kalika Talu Davis. I wanted to just start off by introducing myself in Dene Bazad, my Navajo language, and share my lineage of my clans of where I come from. I am Dene, Southern Ute, French, and Belgium, and I'm just so honored to be here in this historic chemo theater. In this way, we have always held New Mexico and Southern Territory sacred to our people, to our lands, and to Pueblo people across the region. My family has been here for many generations, including my late Nolly and grandfather, Fred Begay, who was the first Navajo nuclear physicist to graduate with his PhD at UNM in the 70s. My father grew up on the streets of Albuquerque, as well as myself, and now I get to raise my little son here in this city that we love. I found another historic photo from the Occidental Life Building, where we get to work and experience beauty every day. Our New Mexico Community Capital offices are located there, along with RS21, Electric Playhouse, and our partners, Native Women Lead. NMCC was in the Bank Loft building across Central, on 2nd and Central, over 4 years ago. And we had the chance of connecting with the owners who invited us to the Occidental space, and we have been renting there for the past 2 years. Being in this space has been incredible to host large gatherings, both virtually and in person. It has been a catalyst for continued growth and a place for Native entrepreneurs to thrive. I started working for NMCC 4 years ago after going through the Native Entrepreneur Residency Program. They helped me to grow my business, Salon Talu, and a thriving wellness center that include other stylists, massage therapists, Ayurvedic practitioners, specialists, and even Dene language classes and mentorship for Native youth. During that time, my mentor, Claire Zarowski, helped me understand the importance of branding and social media. My social media skills increased so much with NMCC that I joined the strategy team of communications alongside of amazing Native women to collaborate and amplify Native-owned businesses here across the Southwest and across Turtle Island. I'm proud to say I also supported launching Indigi Exchange, an online website that features 40+ Indigenous artists across New Mexico. Last year, we hosted pop-up markets every first Friday, inviting 30+ vendors to come and sell their arts and products. We hosted successful gatherings and in partnership with the Art Walk, which has been amazing, to host more makers and native farmers to collaborate, barter, and sell goods right here in the downtown Albuquerque. I'm also proud to say that through NMCC, I was able to meet, go through the NMCC and met fellow co-founders of Native Women Lead, one of the fastest growing Indigenous women-led entrepreneurial organizations birthed right here in downtown Albuquerque. I'm happy to share that NWL and NMCC were named one of the top 4 awardees of the Equality Can't Wait Challenge. Out of 550 applicants across Turtle Island, we were named one of the organizations awarded $10 million to positively impact women's power and influence across the U.S. Yes. It was amazing. It was incredible. Our goal is to reach 3,000 Indigenous women in the next 4 years. Through our partnership with Native Women Lead and New Mexico Community Capital, we will continue to offer technical assistance with our Business Marketing Essential course, one-to-one mentorship, seed funding, technology bundles, collaborative marketing campaigns that many of our participants of the Matriarchy funds will co-create with us. This work has been a huge inspiration and driving force for the continued expansion and beautification of the Occidental downtown space. We hope to grow our presence and to welcome everyone. We are excited to share our vision to create an immersive space and showcase Indigenous arts, fashion, networking events. We also envision a stage kitchen to host Indigenous culinary arts and cuisine, and even hope it to have intergenerational spaces with meditation and a private office rooms available to rent. Exciting, again, Electric Playhouse, RS21 are our friends and occupy this amazing building with us, and we have their full support in bringing forward our visual and tech needs to host partner gatherings for both organizations for the greater downtown area. We are so thrilled and look forward to exploring ways to continue to collaborate with all of you in this space. I'm just honored again to be here with you. You can always find us on 3rd and Gold. We're there for every first Friday, along with the Art Walk, and would like to continue to see thriving culture and community and the love of downtown. You can go ahead and follow us and find us at nmccap.org on our website to learn more. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So all of that started with a dream, right? All of that started with us just getting together, coming up with ideas. Now we have $10 million to do it, right? This is possible, right? We could be seen on a national light for our downtown work. Are you all excited for this new space downtown, right? Intergenerational space that we could celebrate Indigenous culture. And look all around us. It's all around us here in downtown, and we're just continuing that legacy. So again, thank you for sharing that love story. I want to go back to that Hogan. Did you all know there was a Hogan here in downtown Albuquerque? Never knew that. Well, Kalika was able to show me how to build our own Hogan, and we were able to build a Hogan. And something that they taught us is that you have to take care of it, right? You have to love it, right? And the more you love it, the more it gives, the more blessings it gives to you. So when we're talking about the love of downtown, we're really talking about kind of a Dene concept called Hojon. And that's what you taught me, just all these years together, that everything we do, we walk in beauty. So if you could lead me with the kind of 4 ways of saying Hojon Nahasli. Can you share that with them?
It's a blessing of beauty all around for the sacred space and for all of you. Hojon Nahasli, Hojon Nahasli, Hojon Nahasli, Hojon Nahasli.
Thank you. Thank you all.
One more time for Henry and Kalika, please. Could y'all do this? It's the heart emoji, but when you actually have to do it with your whole hand and not just your thumb. There you go. Yeah, those. Okay, so that heart is not just how much you love downtown, but that heart is going to also be for Peter. So make sure you show it to him when he comes out here, because he's the city love guy. He's the city love guy. I will. Before I read Peter's formal introduction, I had the pleasure of having, we had a prefab so we could talk about things. And I'm reminded right at this moment, as I walk out here to take the microphone, that I have to go put money in the meter. And so one of the things that Peter talks about is every city struggles with parking, that you can't let that get in the way of being a great city or a downtown. And there's lots of other cities that don't. Have you ever been to New York? But I'm reminded just right now because it's been 2 hours and you only have 2 hours. So here we go. Peter Kageyama is the author of For the Love of Cities, the love affair between people and their places, the follow-ups, Love Where You Live, creating emotionally engaging places, and the emotional infrastructure of places. In 2021, he released For the Love of Cities Revisited, a revised and updated version of the award-winning book. Peter is a senior fellow with the Alliance for Innovation, a national network of city leaders, and a special advisor to America in Bloom. He is an internationally sought-after community development consultant and grassroots engagement strategist who speaks all over the world about bottom-up community development and the amazing people who are making change happen. That's you. Make some noise for Peter Kageyama.
Thank you. All right. He has a great voice. It's like you're just going to listen to him. It's like, and he's saying my name and that's my bio. And go, wow, that guy sounds cool. So thank you very much for the opportunity to come and speak with you here today. Hopefully, I'm going to fire up your imagination, get you excited about the things that you guys can actually do to make for a better, more interesting, more lovable city. And I start with the question. I usually do. Oh, there we go. Oh, and here we're having this issue again. Pretend you didn't see that. Oh, this is going to bug me. Okay. I start with a question. Do you love your city? And yeah, people who usually come out and hear a guy who's literally written books about loving their city, yeah, chances are you folks in this audience, you guys do love your city. And we would like to believe that that is a commonly held notion. I suspect in this room it is true amongst the folks you hang out with, your friends, your family, the people you work with. Hopefully that is the case. But the sad truth is that not nearly enough of us actually do love our places. So it is on us. Those of us who do love a place, those of us who do care about a place, we need to be the emotional standard bearers and carry that message of love out there and help our fellow residents see and feel the city the way that we do. Because remember this, emotions are contagious. You smile, I smile. You cry, I feel bad. When more people start saying they love Albuquerque, more people are going to see it, more people are going to feel it, more people are going to believe it. And maybe we can create that virtuous cycle, you know, where good things compound upon good things, and people are going to say, hey, have you been to Albuquerque lately? And go, yeah, there's something going on. And you can literally feel it, right? Now, unfortunately, most people's relationship with their place is not nearly as deep, not nearly as nuanced, not nearly as well thought out as that. And in fact, most people's relationship with their city can actually be summarized by one thing, and it's actually the pothole. You saw the pothole already. Now, none of us like potholes, right? And we will complain to our leaders about the potholes, right? I'm sure the mayor actually gets, accosted in, in church, in stores, in restaurants. Say, hey, Mr. Mayor, there's a particularly pernicious pothole that really needs your attention, and you expect him to get on the bat phone and get out there and fix it. As is ongoing song and dance, right? We complain about the potholes, the leaders of the city, and eventually gets around to fixing them. Ongoing song and dance. Here's the thing. We fix every pothole in the city, fix every pothole in the state. And you, the collective residents, would yawn, stretch, and say, yeah, thanks, roads don't suck quite so bad. There is no love for fixing potholes. There's no emotional return on investment for fixing potholes. This is not to say we're going to stop fixing the potholes, but I think we can agree that we should aspire to something more. Now, here's the tricky part. Our fellow residents know to ask for you to fix the potholes, right? It's pretty obvious. There's a hole in the road, my car's going to fall into it. Somebody really ought to fix that. But our residents don't necessarily know how to ask for other things. Things like beauty and art and great design. That is not in their vocabulary. So we as the thought leaders in a place, and I suspect that you are all thought leaders in this place, we as the thought leaders in a place not only have to listen to what our fellow residents are going to ask for, and of course they're going to ask for the most basic things. Hey, fix the potholes. Make sure the police and fire service arrive if I ever need them. But at heart, we know they want something more. And after we've given it to them, they're going to say, man, how the heck did I ever live without this stuff? So as we're thinking about building a better place, we have to meet some minimum threshold requirements. To be a working community, of course, you have to be functional and you have to be safe, right? Now, when city budgets get tight, and city budgets always cyclically do get tight, someone's going to say, hey, you know what, mine's a little tight right now. Let's make it functional, let's make it safe. We paint it battleship gray and kick it out the door, and that's good enough. No, I don't think so. I don't think even the most fiscally conservative tax hawks amongst us want to live in a really functional, safe, and battleship gray community, okay? So what could we aspire to? What should we aspire to in our places? Well, how about comfort? Why can't the city be comfortable? How about convivial in the sense that the city actually helps facilitate bringing us together and connecting us with each other? Why isn't our city interesting? And maybe even more appropriately, why isn't our city fun? Where's the fun is a perfectly legitimate question that we should be asking a whole heck of a lot more as we think about better placemaking. Now think about this. All of you have been involved in work back at the office or with your team there when you're wrestling with some big hairy problem. Maybe you're in that meeting tomorrow. My apologies, it's going to happen. But the next time we find ourselves in one of those meetings, it'd be very interesting if one of you would raise your hand and say, yeah, okay, I see what we're doing here, and I got to ask, where's the fun? Because when you ask that question, you actually change the dynamic in the room and the way people are fundamentally thinking about the problem. You ask, where's the fun? And someone might actually look up from their phone. They might smile a little bit and go, yeah, where is the fun? And in that moment, you've opened up the door to the possibility of something beyond a merely technically sufficient solution. Where's the fun? Great question to ask. And think about this. All of us have been involved with all kinds of projects that have all kinds of requirements and specifications, right? When was the last time you ever saw fun as a stated, articulated goal of any of those projects? Even a project which, say, by its very nature should be fun, a park, a playground, something like that. There's all kinds of environmental, structural, insurance requirements. Not one mentioned the word fun. Why not? Why not at least put that out there? Maybe somebody who's charged with delivering that solution, they might look at that and go, huh, management wants it to be fun. How about if I try this? I don't know what this is today. You don't have to know what this is today, but maybe somebody who's delivering that solution might have a pretty good idea what this could be in the context of that particular problem if we at least plant the seed and the hope and maybe even the expectation of something beyond a merely technically sufficient solution. So where's the fun? I'm going to encourage you guys to continue to ask that question because it's a great question and it helps reframe all of the problems that we are facing around that. So the things that I write about, the things that I talk about, and the stories I love to share with folks are about the things that people tell me that they love about their places or that they show me that they love about their places. And oftentimes these are kind of personal, kind of intimate, relatively small usually. So in my books, I liken them to the idea of the handwritten note that goes with the gift, a love note, if you will. And all of us have had that experience of giving a gift to a friend, a significant other, and forgetting to give that card or that note, right? And that's a mistake because that card, that note means something. Since we take a moment, we make it personal, we make it special, we make that intimate connection. And oftentimes that card is more impactful and more important than the gift itself. It's the small thing with the outsized impact, the love note, if you will. And the love notes idea are things that cities will give to their residents, and if cities are very lucky, the residents might feel inclined to give back to the city as well. I got a few examples here for you. This is Mill Ends Park in Portland, Oregon, and according to Guinness, it is actually the world's smallest official city park, and it is not much bigger than a planter. But for over 60 years, the city and their parks department has taken great pride and great pleasure in maintaining this lovely little park. And they dress it up, they theme it, of course. Now, if you're a tourist, you want to take a picture of that. It's like, oh, that's adorable, right? If you're a local, he says, yes, we're very proud of our tiny little park. Again, in the context of a bigger city, it's a very small thing, but it's the kind of thing that you do remember. It's the kind of thing you take a photograph of. It's an Instagrammable moment, absolutely. But it is the small thing with the outsized impact, the love note. Or how about this? The Lawn on D in Boston, Massachusetts. This is an interesting one because you guys have a convention center right downtown here as well. So adjacent to the convention center in downtown Boston a few years ago, they had this open green space, and they're trying to figure out how to activate this space. And for lack of a better description, what they ended up creating was an adult playground, right? So they bring in swings, but not just any kind of swings, they bring in adult-sized swings, right? Because, hey, why should kids have all the fun? And then they program the heck out of this space. Yeah, there we go. So beer gardens and wine tastings, there's yoga classes, there's Zumba, there's music, there's cornhole, there's giant Jenga, right? By the way, giant Jenga actually is a spectator sport. You know this is true because when it starts to tilt, you will stop and you will watch, and when it goes over, you will applaud, right? Yes. So I think that's kind of wonderful. And I think it's brilliant where they put it. It's adjacent to the convention center. Now think about it, on a typical week, how many conventioneers cycle through that convention center? Thousands, right? And every one of them is going to look out that window and go, you know what? That looks much more interesting than the tax class I'm supposed to be at over here. And at some point, I hope they find their way out onto the lawn, and I hope they do. And if you're a local, you love knowing this is part of your downtown. If you're a tourist and you're visiting, go, this is really cool. It's like, hey, why don't we have something like this back home? So again, in the context of Boston, relatively small thing, but definitely an outsized impact. And I've found some local love notes here. This one. This does not necessarily look like much, but this is significant, right? Your rail trail project absolutely is a love note. It's going to be a huge, impactful love note to your community. It's going to connect neighborhoods. It's going to open up areas, whole new tracts for development and redevelopment as well. And the reason this is significant is apparently this is the first time that this particular railroad tracks have been crossed into this particular street in generations, right? So this just was opened, I guess, within the last couple weeks. It's one of those small steps, but it is an important one. And there were, folks were showing them around yesterday, they're very proud of the fact. It's like, hey, this is progress. Like, I believe you there. And of course, then the whole rail trail, once that is done, that will be a very significant love note for you guys. Very cool about that. How about this clicker actually works? Oh, this is going to bug me? Like, no, okay, there we go. Birupi. I love the story that's there, right? It's now the art gallery as well, but, it used to be a drugstore. And then Maclovia, I think that was her name, sort of the woman whose character is sort of embedded into the walls and embedded into the story. And what I love about this is, A, the sign is cool, but here's the other thing. There's something about old buildings. There's a story baked into an old building that, as you stand in it, you can kind of feel those echoes. I think this is a love note as well. I mean, think about this place. Think about the generations of folks who've come here and sat in the dark and watched something really cool on this particular stage or on this particular screen there. That is something that, carries on, and there are echoes around that. And certainly there are echoes in these really interesting old buildings that have found new life. Very much a love note. This one was really cool because I didn't even know this was going to be on the tour. We're driving past, I go, ooh, that's really cool. Can we stop? And of course we did stop. There, the Occidental Life Building there. Now Henry and Kalika have their offices in here. I thought that was, we went in and I got to meet them yesterday. But just having a building like that in your downtown, that's good stuff. I mean, that, no offense to the other architecture downtown here, that just looks and feels differently. And you feel kind of proud of that. Of course, when you see that, I know I'm in Albuquerque. Right. So yes, you should be very proud of something like this because it has a history and it's identifiable and it is uniquely yours. Definitely a love note. And as far as love notes go, the rail yards is a big, giant love note. And it will eventually find, I believe, a new purpose. There's a lot of buildings like this out there in the world. Go to places like Detroit. There's lots of places like this in Detroit. But there have been very interesting sort of adaptive reuse projects around these massive buildings. A couple Sears distribution centers, one in Memphis, one in Atlanta, another one apparently in Dallas. I was talking with someone here earlier today. So yes, these are hard to do because that much space is really tough to fill and it takes some deep pockets and it takes some imagination. But I'll tell you then, again, having a story baked into it, as cool as Birupi is, you can fit Birupi in about this part of the stage, right? Well, imagine the stories and the echoes that you're going to hear and feel once this maybe comes back to life there as well. Big, giant love note. Oh my goodness, what the hell happened there? I'm not doing that. All right, can we roll that back about, there we go. Wait, go to the mural. Tell you what, can you press that because I'm not having luck with it. Keep going forward, transition, hit it again. Sorry, I've got a couple transitions in there. Okay, 1, 2, 3, there. Hold it there. I'm going to put this down. You guys are driving, okay? All right, thank you. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, I love murals. Murals are fantastic ways to dress up cities, to make them feel vibrant and alive, right? There's something about just having that picture there. You don't even have to like the art, but you just walk past it and you go, that feels better than an ordinary blank wall or just a tagged ugly wall or something like that. This is a fantastic mural in downtown Minneapolis. Bob Dylan, of course, a son of Minnesota. So you'd expect to see something really wonderful like this. Let's go to the next slide. This one is in downtown St. Petersburg, Florida, where I live. And in today's age, yeah, you better be thinking about, okay, is this an Instagrammable moment? Say, yes, this is an incredibly Instagrammable place in downtown St. Petersburg. Lots of photos around this one. Very cool. Next. How about this one? This is on the side of Birupi, and that's Maclovia. And and so she's there. She's sort of the patron saint of that particular spot there. And of course, having that and honoring her and keeping that history and that story alive. That is at the heart of what a good mural actually does. Next. This one is really interesting. This one is in downtown Huntsville there. And so the Downtown Association was taking me around talking about sort of the streetscape and the murals that they were very proud of. And I think this is lovely. This actually has to do with African-American voters, women who were disenfranchised, and this was a sort of a celebration of African-American women voting in Huntsville. Now, it's really cool because, as you notice, she's pouring the water, And this tree down here, you have to stand in a certain spot to actually see the whole mural. It's like, oh, now I get it. And according to the folks there in Huntsville, they said, this is the most important tree in their downtown. This tree cannot die. So they're very protective of this tree. This tree gets lots of water, gets lots of love there, and I get that there. Because again, without the tree, this does not quite work the same way there as well. Okay, so I love a good mural. But here's the thing about murals. I can't paint. Most of us probably can't paint. So I look at the mural, I appreciate it. I love knowing it's there. But the relationship sort of stops there. Let's go to the next one. So some folks in Ludington, Michigan. Ludington is on the west coast of Michigan. Small town, about 10,000 people. You know how folks from Michigan hold up their hand like a mitten and say, where are you from? Yeah, they're that guy. It's like Ludington's over here on the right side, about halfway up there on Lake Michigan. There. And a few years ago, they had this ugly downtown wall. And what they did is they invited an artist to come in. Oh, well, we went one too far there. So they invited an artist to come in, thank you, to do a sort of a paint-by-numbers outline on the wall. And then over one weekend, they invited the entire community to come down, grab a number, grab a bucket of paint, go paint your number. And the result was this. Now, as art goes, it's not high art, but it is highly interactive public art. It's the kind of public art people will point to and say, hey, you know what? I helped paint that. And we feel very differently about something we have had a hand in the making of, right? So maybe one of the things we ought to be thinking about here is we're talking about downtowns and creating more activity downtown is how do we allow more of our fellow residents to roll up their sleeves and get a little dirty? Now this makes city managers, city attorneys, and risk managers a little bit nervous. That's okay. We can figure this stuff out because the upside is quite significant. Because when we are part of making something, of building something, we feel we feel a sense of pride about it. We feel very protective about that stuff. So yeah, I think figuring out how we can, again, be part of that process, because all of us can and need to be city builders in this particular context. Next. All right. Greenville, South Carolina is an interesting place. They will make the argument that they are the best downtown in America, right? And they make a very good case for it. This is their main street. It's got a fantastic tree canopy on Main Street here. All kinds of local restaurants, local shops. There at the far end of this road, there's this park that has this waterfall in it that has this amazing footbridge that goes across it called Falls Park. It's sensational, right? It is so good, other cities go there to study it, right? So, amidst all this incredibly well done big stuff, and by big stuff I do mean expensive stuff, the thing that sort of surprised and delighted me, and the thing that I remember and the story I tell to folks like you, is actually something very, very small. It's actually, next, the mice on Main. These little brass mice, and the story goes like 20 years ago, a high school student goes into the mayor's office with this idea. Says, hey, Mr. Mayor, I want to do this scavenger hunt downtown. I want to cast these little brass mice, I want to put them downtown on Main Street, and encourage people to sort of go and explore the city as they look for the mice. Mayor said, interesting, how much money do you need? And the kid said like $1,200. And yeah, you bet, the mayor said sold for $1,200. So now you'll see people walking around downtown there. They get the maps in the restaurants and shops. Says, okay, come to this particular street corner, turn this way, 45 degrees, and look up. Next. Boom. And you'll hear kids and women, and yes, grown men squealing with delight once they found one of these mice. And after you found one of these mice, you're looking everywhere for the damn thing. It's like, okay, so next. It's like, oh, yeah, there's another one. And the mice are all very cute. Next. They've all been given names and a backstory. Next. And it's all been collected in this really cool children's book. Next. Called The Mice on Main. That's pretty cool. So again, amidst all that well-done, big, expensive stuff, my lasting impression, and I'm certain I'm not alone in this, is of something that small, and some people are going to say that's silly. Yes, those little things, they do matter, especially when they're done well with a sense of humor, a sense of fun, a sense of creativity, a sense of whimsy. Whimsy, that's a good word. We should use whimsy a lot more as a word. I just like saying that, whimsy there. But yes, so these small things absolutely do matter. I do recognize, however, that sometimes we need to go big. Next. The Denver Convention Center. This is a piece of public art called I See What You Mean, but of course locally it's known as the Big Blue Bear. Now, the Big Blue Bear has become a very beloved piece of public art. It's about 15 years old now, but that wasn't necessarily always the case. And can you imagine the first time that artist came into city council with that particular idea? Says, hey, I got an idea. I want to do this statue. It's going to be of a bear. It's going to be really, really big, and oh, by the way, it's going to be blue. I suppose that conversation goes over the first time the powers that be hear that. They go, do you know how many potholes we could fix for the cost of that ridiculous bear? And yeah, therein lies your challenge. Yes, the bear has a cost. And if you're one of those people who sees the world through that lens, if everything is about the cost of things, the pure financial accounting of things, then yeah, you can always justify not doing something by saying, you know what, we could always fix more potholes, which again is technically true. But in addition to having a cost, the bear also has a value. And to me, the value of the big blue bear is once you've seen the big blue bear, you cannot unsee the big blue bear. You will always remember it, and you will always associate it with Denver. And think about how many photographs are taken of this thing every day. Dozens, hundreds probably, maybe even thousands on a good convention day there. And every one of those photos that goes out there into the internet, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube video, whatever, all that. Every one of those is a smile, is a postcard, is a love note from the city of Denver. That absolutely has value. Now, there's lots of people who want to hold, our elected officials' feet to the fire. They're always talking about the cost of things. They're obsessed with the cost of things. I'll tell you what, cost is easy. It's an easy thing to identify. It's a number on a page. It's a number on a screen. It's like it says it costs right there. It's easy. Value is different. Value is tougher to quantify. Yes, everything has a cost, but everything also has a value, and things have a value beyond the pure financial accounting of things. And if we want to live in the type of world that has room for things like beauty and art and great design, and yes, big blue bears, then we need to speak up and we need to fight for this kind of stuff. And this is an argument we can win. Fine. Next time we're having this debate, in council or in whatever, your online forum of choice, or a party, whatever. So yeah, fine. Let's talk about the cost of things. But then let's also talk about the value of things. And remember, things have a value beyond the purely financial. And if folks really want to get snippy about this stuff, then let's talk about the cost of ugly. Let's talk about the cost of boring. Because you bet those things have a cost. And I guarantee you that those folks who are obsessed with the cost of everything have never thought about it in those particular terms. It's an argument we can win. It's an argument we need to win if we're going to build the type of community that I believe all of us actually do want to live in. Next. The ultimate, though, in terms of lovable cities are, of course, its people. The people are desperately, passionately in love with their places, who will sometimes go above and beyond ordinary levels of citizenship and sometimes do extraordinary things for their places, not because they're paid to, but this is how their sense of community, how their sense of creativity manifests in these amazing ways. I call these folks the co-creators because they're essentially co-creating the experience along with the official folks. It's sort of the mayor's job and the Chamber of Commerce and the economic development folks, the developers. It's kind of their job to create some of the content that is your city. But then there are these other folks, not their job, but we know how important they are to actually making a place interesting and fun and livable, like my friend Bob Devin Jones here. Now, Bob is the creative director of a small black box theater in downtown St. Petersburg, where I live. And for those of us who live in St. Pete, we know how important Bob is to making St. Pete a great place to live, work, and play. But Bob doesn't show up on any city org chart. He's not one of the most powerful, most influential business people. No, none of that. But those of us who live there, we know how important Bob is to our community. Now, I bet every one of you know your community's versions of Bob Devin Jones. Some of you actually are this community's version of Bob Devin Jones. And because we know you, we see you around town, I run into Bob at the coffee shop all the time, I'm sure people think, oh, that's just Bob being Bob. No, I got to tell you, Bob being Bob is extraordinary. And we need more of that. Because Bob and you do not see the problem the same way that the official folks do. And consequently, your solutions can be very different than the ones the official folks are even allowed to consider, right? That's where this thing gets interesting. You need good top-down leadership, yes, but you also need this interesting bottom-up leadership, the kind of stuff that happens when folks like Bob decide they want to do something interesting, something creative, something a little bit different there. Good top-down means interesting bottom-up. That's when places really get interesting. Next. This is Andrew Anderson. He's my friend from Muscatine, Iowa. And Muscatine is on the east side of Iowa there on the Mississippi River. And I met Andrew about 10 years ago, and he was telling me about a project that made him sort of Iowa famous. He said he loves his community. He says, but the folks there in Muscatine, he says, they're hardworking, good people, salt of the earth, but the folks in my community, he said, don't believe they're very creative, because I want them to believe something different about themselves. He said one day he was at the river, and for whatever reason, he's looking at the river, and the idea of the Loch Ness Monster pops into his head. He starts thinking about, what if there was a monster that lived in the Mississippi River there at Muscatine? Maybe it had lived there for centuries, right? So he starts thinking about this stuff. So he starts writing about this stuff. He starts sketching, and then he starts building some stuff. He creates a Facebook account. He creates a Twitter account. Building, and in the summer of 2012, he debuts, next, the Muscatine River Monster. It appears in the upper floors of this old hotel that had been converted to condos, right? So he's working with the developers and the owners there. And these arms have those fans in them, so they actually move in the wind. It's like, oh my God, how cool is that, right? And this was up for like a week. He said, press coverage around this was universally positive. People were buzzing about, the monster. They were coming downtown. They wanted to take pictures, all this stuff. And he was downtown a lot during that week, he said. And people found out that he was the guy behind the monster. And they were coming up to him. He goes, we love the monster. Could we get it in our building? And he said he really hadn't intended this thing as anything other than a one-off. But he said, you know what? Sure, why not? So now, next, the monster's made the rounds. It's been in storefronts. Next. The dorms at the community college, next. It's been at the public library, next. And yes, even in the 4th of July parade. I love that. I love that. I look at people, it looks like folks are taking pictures down here, but I hope what they're thinking is they're looking at that. You know what they said? You know what? One of us made that crazy thing. One of us. Here's an example of a co-creator. Somebody who loves their community has essentially held up a mirror to his community and says, you know what? All that you think you are, yes, but you are something more. That is important. That is powerful. And what a strange and unlikely vehicle to deliver that message. A monster, right? Nowhere in the city manager's handbook is there a page on monsters. I would worry if there was, right? So again, the co-creators do not look at the problems in the same way. They do not look at the resources in the same way. And to prove that point, I got one more to show you here. Next.
My name is Peregrine Church. I make things that make the world a more interesting place, like a rainwork. Rainworks are pieces of street art that only appear when they're wet, and they're messages or images designed to make people's rainy day a little bit better. Seattle is associated with rain, it's fair to say, and rainworks just all it needs to be is wet, so it's sort of the ideal Seattle art.
So the stuff that makes rainworks is biodegradable, environmentally friendly, and completely non-toxic.
The essential ingredient when making rainworks is a super hydrophobic coating.
Okay, let's see how it works on the never wetted pants and shirt. So you want me to start on the shirt, all right?
That is a chemical that when you put it on a surface will prevent that surface from getting wet.
What? What?
I was just browsing the internet one day and stumbled across a viral video, and the video showed like these really vivid images of like red wine pouring off a white shirt and chocolate syrup pouring off white shoes and people getting buckets of water thrown on them and they're like totally fine. And I'm like, whoa, that's super cool. What can I do with this? It's a spray-on substance, so it made sense. Like, what if you sprayed it through a stencil? So if you put it on concrete, well, ideally it'd be invisible. Instead of the concrete getting dark, the water will just roll right off it and it'll stay light colored. The contrast can be used to create an image. The very first one I did said stay dry out there and had a bunch of raindrops falling in it. It was on a bus stop. And now there's about 25 to 30 rainworks out there. There's a lily pad and pond with frogs hopping between them in Ballard. There's I Heart Rain in UW. At 4th and Bell it says, worry is a misuse of the imagination. There's Today's Weather, Rain in Fremont. There's Proud to be Rainy in Capitol Hill. There's Hopscotch at the Junction in West Seattle, and we want to make way more. I mean, it's gonna rain no matter what, so why not do something cool with it?
Yeah, so how fun is that? Now, I bet if we went and talked with the city and asked, the Public Works Department about that and said, oh yeah, super hydrophobic coating, we've known about that for years. But they never thought to do something like that with it. And that is sort of the genius of what the co-creators bring to the table. Again, they don't look at the problems the same way, they don't look at the resources in the same way, and they come up with some wildly different stuff. And here's the thing about the co-creators. As I mentioned, many of you are actually in the room here. That's the thing. They are in every community. We don't have to go and import them from some other cool city or something like that. No, they're already here. They're already doing stuff. And that, I think, is one of the key things that we need to be thinking about here is how do we find some more of those folks? How do we channel what they're doing and maybe some of the other things that the official folks want to do? Where do we line up? Where are the natural intersections of us to collaborate and support each other in all of this? Because again, it can't just be about what the city can do, what the chamber can do, what the foundations can do. It's got to be about what we can do. In all this conversation about building better places and building downtowns and all this stuff, there isn't necessarily a parity of power, but there has to be a parity of caring. We all kind of have to give a damn in order for this thing to work, right? So that means that we as city makers, as placemakers, it doesn't have to be, it's not maybe something that's going to change the entire city, but it could change my neighborhood, it could change our backyard, it could change our feeling about a particular place, all right? So, because we are, of course, talking about the importance of downtown, I had some lessons for downtown. But let me say this, first and foremost. Downtown is everybody's neighborhood. I don't care where you live in a city. Downtown is still part of your neighborhood because the identity of every place is, it begins with downtown. So if you have a vibrant, exciting, interesting downtown, you're going to have this halo effect that the whole community is going to have that feeling of being vibrant and exciting and interesting. And if you have a downtown that's like, it's kind of sleepy, it's kind of moribund, it's kind of, or dead in some place like that, that's really hard to have a vibrant community when the heart, the psychic center of a place is not thriving. That's why it's in everybody's interest to make downtown a great neighborhood. Because again, I don't care where you live, this is the one place that we all sort of communally share in this particular community. And again, then that makes it all of our responsibilities. Next. One of the first things that the mayor was talking about here and was mentioned earlier today was the importance of security. And I get that. Remember, I meant functional and safe is at the bottom of that pyramid, and I mentioned that that is kind of important. To be a working community, that has to be the case. Now, every city has to be, thinking about security. It's sort of sadly, it is sort of the world we live in today. But when we think about security, next please, we tend to think about stuff like this, right? And I get that. And, and we tend to think that there are certain groups that are primarily responsible for security. First responders, our police service, like that. It's like, okay, and I get that. But when I see something like this, it's kind of, to me, it's a mixed message. Like, okay, on the one hand, it's like, okay, I guess it's good, guys are there. But on the other hand, I'm thinking, why are they there, right? So overt security like that can kind of have a chilling effect on what we're actually trying to do. We're actually trying to encourage people to come and explore and be part of the community. Yet if you have this sort of overwhelming military presence, like, you know what? I'll go watch Netflix at home there instead. So again, this is the kind of solution we get when we in charge the primary folks with the main responsibility. I'm not saying that the police shouldn't be the primary folks, but other folks can contribute to this idea of security. So we don't just have stuff like this. In fact, we can have stuff like this. This is the Fremont Bridge Troll in Seattle. And yes, this actually is a security measure. And the troll is about 25 years old now. And this particular bridge in the Fremont neighborhood there, apparently about 25 years ago, a lot of antisocial, a lot of bad behavior happening under the bridge there, especially at night. So the local residents were complaining to the police department, says, hey, we want more police, we want more lighting, we want more surveillance, more drive-bys, help us out here. Well, while the police are trying to figure out exactly what they're going to do, along comes, of all organizations, the Arts Council with an idea. It says, hey, how about if we put how about if we put a troll under the bridge and scare away the bad guys? And that's exactly what they did. That is a full-size VW that is there in its hand, right? So they build this troll, and of course people love it, and they want to come down and they want to see it, they want to climb on it, they want to take pictures of it. So all this really good activity sort of scares away the bad activity. Of course, now the neighborhood says, I got all these damn tourists in my neighborhood. It's like, okay, we'll deal with that, but fine. So again, this is a security measure. Interesting, right? So when was the last time we invited the Arts Council to participate in a conversation about security? Why not? They have a perspective on that, and we might get something that's very different by inviting them to the table. By the same token, we could, the Arts Council should probably ask the police department, say, hey, what do you think about, sort of an arts project? Because they would have an interesting perspective on the same thing as well. But again, security doesn't have to be that overt sort of presence that we typically default to. It could be something as interesting as this, next, or this. Iron Man. You got Iron Man standing guard downtown. That's pretty cool. Maybe we need the rest of the Avengers out there as well. But you know what? That draws people. It draws eyes. It draws attention, right? And good activity scares away the bad activity. And sometimes it's stuff like this that starts to spur that, a visible presence there. If we figure out how to put some lights in his eyes that sort of move side to side, that'd be kind of interesting too. Yeah, say, hey, there. But yes, stuff like this has a security feature built into it as well. Next. How about this one? This was in downtown Columbus a few years ago. And normally, you don't want to walk under underpasses in downtowns, especially at night. But I happened to be there, and I noticed that these lights were pulsing and moving and stuff like this, and I was sort of drawn into it. It's like, wow, this is really cool. And it was actually really kind of beautiful as well. And the thing is, these LED lights are pretty inexpensive these days. They're programmable. They can do all kinds of interesting things, And again, if we were just doing this from a pure security sort of perspective, we could put in the brightest, most fluorescent lights that even the cockroaches would escape from there. But they didn't. They said, you know what? We can do security, but we can also do it in a way that doesn't necessarily feel overtly like security, but has this other effect as well. Next. These glow rocks. This is an interesting little construction material. This stuff absorbs light during the day, and then at night it just kind of glows. It's like, folks are using this in parking lots, on pathways, and all kinds of interesting sort of uses on something as simple as that. And again, it is a security measure. At the same time, it's actually kind of interesting and potentially even beautiful. Next. Dog parks. Dog parks actually are security measures, and I will tell you why. Well, first of all, dog parks are kind of incredible love notes as a whole. I love dog parks, and I've written extensively about dogs in all my books there as well. But dog parks are kind of a special thing because dog parks are social, right? People talk to each other at the dog park. Now, they don't know your name, but they do know your dog's name, right? And eventually they might get around to learning your name as well. And that's some social capital that didn't exist before. It's because the dog has essentially broken the ice and negotiated that encounter for you. That's really cool. There. And again, dog parks, and the whole dog sort of infrastructure that is around that, dog parks actually, and dog ownership actually increases security in neighborhoods. Because you know what? Because dog owners have to walk their dogs at all hours of the day and night. Creating what Jane Jacobs, the great urbanist, called the eyes of strangers on the street, right? There's nothing worse than walking down a completely empty street, especially at night. We feel pretty exposed by that. But hey, if there's a dog and a dog walker out there, it's all good. So maybe there's some neighborhoods we'd like to see get safer, get better. Well, maybe, of course, we talk about police and all this other stuff, but maybe it's as simple as a dog park and taking advantage of the fact that, again, dog walkers have to be out there walking their dogs at the same time. So this is a feature, it's a wonderful feature, especially as we're talking about downtowns, and you're trying to increase the residential population downtowns. And I know we're also trying to increase the amount of green space downtown. This is a fantastic way of checking off multiple boxes at the same time. There as well. So yes, so I know there are, and in every community there is an anti-dog contingent. I know that, I've heard this. But you know what? They aren't thinking about it in terms of like, this is a safety measure. They think it's just loud, yappy dogs. Like, no, it actually benefits you in lots and lots of ways there. Not the least of which, and of course, an important way, is from safety. So again, security is an important issue, but it doesn't default to that sort of the notion of armed camp kind of thing. It's like there's lots of ways to address that, and to do it in a way that actually facilitates a better, more interesting, more lovable downtown. Next. As I mentioned, green space. Green space is incredibly important to every community there as well. Next, please. And I bet you all sort of knew this, but I bet you all really learned it in the last couple of years during COVID, right? Because when everyone place was locked down, everything was shut down and whatnot, and you couldn't stay in the house anymore, and the restaurants were closed, the mall was closed, the theaters were closed. Where are you going to go? You went to the park, right? You got outside, and you probably dusted off an old bicycle that maybe you hadn't ridden in years, and on unsteady wheels you rolled out there and realized, hey, this is really kind of cool. So I think we have a newfound appreciation of the importance of parks in our overall physical, mental, emotional, spiritual health there as well. Parks are incredibly important. And the fact that you have, next, the Bosque, that's an incredible asset. And the fact that it is close enough to downtown, I think that is really wonderful there. And once the rail trail helps connect all of that, it all becomes this sort of this integrated loop that you guys are going to be able to use. Yes, that's really cool. But I do think that there needs to be a conscious effort to maybe bring more green space, not necessarily even a park, or maybe a pocket park, or just a better sense of green to the downtown core. As I walked around the last day or so, that's kind of like, okay, I kind of feel like that's something that could be enhanced there as well. So think about that, and think about the importance of green space to making places actually feel like you want to live there, like you want to go there. Next. Parking. Nobody likes parking, right? In fact, next. I talk about this, I wrote about this in my third book. I said, this is infrastructure that makes us both sad and mad, right? Because think about it, all of our emotions around parking are negative, right? Parking just always sucks. I don't care. There's that rare moment when you're trying to go somewhere and you're coming in and somebody pulls out right in front of you and you slide in right behind them. And for that moment, you feel like a god. It's like, yes. But then you still have to pay for it, and then you still have to figure out, it's okay, do I pay for it here? Do I pay for it on the app? Is it in this machine over here? Yes, parking is all just a general pain in the butt. And we address this in lots of interesting ways. Next. Because again, you have to have it. It's all part of the car culture that we have created. Until we can undo that knot, we're going to be dealing with parking. So we've come up with some interesting ways to do it. Next, we try to engineer it. You create these car lifts and elevators and whatnot. It's kind of interesting, and in some very dense cities, it's really, really ugly. They're not necessarily very quick either. It's like next. Or we dress them up. This is in Tampa. It's like, it's a parking garage. It's like, okay, but let's take advantage of that. Let's put a mural on it. Again, I love murals there. It's like, okay, we can dress it up. Not bad. Next. This is in Santa Monica, California. And kind of at night, if you're driving past this, you might think of that as an office building because it kind of disguised it a little bit. It's like, no, that's another parking deck. Next. Or here in Chamonix, France, they literally buried it under a mountain there. Nonetheless, it is still parking. And the thing is like, again, all of our emotions around parking are negative. Yet city solutions to parking is to give you more parking. Another parking deck, another surface parking lot, more parking of this. So think about the irony of that. The thing that makes you both mad and sad, our solution is to give you more of the thing that makes you both mad and sad. And that is sort of the conversation that we have about this. And people, complain about parking because there's really, next slide please. Donald Shoup, who's sort of the guru on parking, he said this, is we don't have a parking problem, we have a parking expectation problem. People think they should be able to park right in front of a store, walk out and go in, go out, like they're in the mall. It's like, no. And the thing is, that's not even a true comparison, because if you're in the mall, you still have to park, and you're going to walk further than you probably would have walked to get to, something if you had to park around the corner or in, parking deck or something like that. So again, the parking expectation problem there as well. Here's the thing. We spend a lot of time trying to solve the problem of parking. Yet you don't solve it. Again, it's one of those things that's like, yeah, it's always going to be there. And again, nobody's ever going to be happy about parking. Even when they find it, it's a pain in the butt there. So the thing is, we got to flip the switch and flip the script on that. So next. We need to make the destination worth the effort, there. As Hakeem said something about parking there, and like New York, he mentioned New York City. Yeah, New York, you think parking is hard or expensive here? Yeah, go to New York City. Try to park there, right? But the thing is, it's expected. And the destination is so worth the effort. It's like, because that's where the restaurants and the shops and the shows are. It's all happening there. So yeah, okay, I'll park. I'll take public transportation, whatever it takes. Because the destination is worth the effort. So let's focus on that. As we're talking about downtown, of course, people are going to raise the issue of parking. Somebody's going to say, well, we don't have enough parking here. No, it's like, you do. You just have, people expect to be able to park right there. No. Let's focus on other things. Let's focus on making whatever it is that we're doing especially downtown, let's make it worth the effort. Let's make it so cool that people are going to forget the fact that they had to pay a couple bucks and walk a couple blocks to get here, right? So that, to me, is some of the core lessons for what downtowns need to be thinking about. Because, again, folks are going to complain about parking, but again, let's make the destination worth the effort. And by making that destination and creating that sense of vibrancy, so many more people are going to be walking your streets and being downtown that's going to help so many of the other issues that people now complain about. The cleanliness, the homeless folks, crime, all this stuff can actually be sort of, not erased and not even removed. It is still there. But when you're focused on the good stuff, it doesn't feel nearly as dire and nearly as troubling as it could potentially be. Next. So the short answer to all of this long talk is that downtowns really do matter. And one of the things I think is kind of important for that is that, somebody should be focused on downtown every day. Downtown is that important that should be somebody's main job. And especially in a city as large as yours there. And, there's a lot of folks who are talking about downtown, and there's a lot of activity and of energy around downtown there. But there should be an entity, there should be somebody whose job it is every day to get up and be passionately engaged with thinking about how to make downtown a better, more interesting, more lovable place. And that would be my sort of advice to you. You guys are in the midst of becoming what you hopefully want to become is that 18-hour city. You have the 9 to 5 sort of crowd. Maybe folks stay for an hour or so afterwards. But you want them to stay after work as well. And you want them to come downtown during the weekend there to create that sort of sense of vibrancy. There's very few true 24-hour cities. New York, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, like there. But no, most cities aspire to being that 18-hour city. And part of that means it's got to be that mix of both work, residential, and play at the same time. Next. Now, what's been interesting about sort of the last couple of years is that somehow COVID has accelerated something that was already happening there as well. We've always known about this sort of cohort of people, they call them sort of the tech nomads, the ones who can literally work from anywhere in the world with a laptop and an internet connection. Well, those folks became even more sort of important in the last couple of years. And all of a sudden now we realized, wait a minute, didn't think of myself as a tech nomad, but I've been working from home for the last couple of years and my company's doing well and I've really enjoyed it. And it's like, yes, so all of a sudden now a lot more people are realizing they're not tethered to an office in the same way that they were before there. So that's kind of interesting. And here's the other side. In a time when every employer in the country is facing worker shortages, especially in the service sector there as well, people who traditionally didn't have a whole lot of options there, now they do there, because you know what, I'm getting minimum wage plus this, but I can get that over here or here or here or anywhere. And maybe I've always wanted to move somewhere else. Maybe now is the time to do it. So folks who historically did not have the option, they have the option now. So it's kind of interesting that we have decoupled place from work. That's an opportunity, and that means that we're in a race to create great, interesting, engaging places where people actually do want to come and move, and then they can figure out their work situation from wherever it is. But there's a challenge with that as well. Next, we are social creatures. We absolutely need that connection with other people, right? It's hardwired, it's built into us. Think about how much historically our social activities, our social networking has come from our associations at work. Those are the people we hang out with, those are people we sometimes we form relationships with, or friendships with. Work has been incredibly important to creating those sort of social bonds and that social capital. Well, if we've decoupled work from that things, then all of a sudden now people are going to need a way to connect with other people. And whose responsibility is that? Well, I think that's an opportunity for the city, for cities to step in and say, you know what, we can help. Remember I showed you that pyramid, conviviality, that fancy word that means connecting with other people? This is what I'm talking about. This is an opportunity where we can now step in and fill that gap. Where folks used to get that connection from their work, now they can get this connection maybe from their neighborhood, from the community as a whole, by building better places and getting them out of the house there. And when they finally do shut their laptop off, they want to walk outside into something that's really interesting and maybe actually meet each other and their neighbors. Next. A couple of closing thoughts here. Yes, the last couple of years have been kind of awful there. Only in a year or 2 years when we got both COVID and the murder hornet would be something like that happen. Yes. Great branding. Murder hornet. Yeah, you gotta love that there. But here's the thing about something that's awful. As human beings, we have this natural reaction when something is awful, we kind of want to get past it like a bad smell. It's like, ugh, just get beyond it. I think that's a mistake. I think we learned a lot in the last couple of years. Yes, they've been incredibly hard. Some of you may have faced challenges, family or health issues. It's like, I'm not trying to diminish the importance of that. But I think we have to look at sort of what was the benefit that we gained from this? What's the silver lining in this kind of shitty package that it came in there as well? And I think it was this collective opportunity to take a breath. Think about that. We kind of slowed down for a couple of years. We took a breath and we took that pause there. And maybe part of that is the Great Resignation is sort of one of those outcomes. But at some point, folks are going to realize they need to reconnect with both work and people, and that's going to happen too. But that was sort of the opportunity. So let's take some of the lessons and remember the last couple of years, and let's remember some of the positive things that we gained from Mr. Murder Hornet here. The Overton window is an interesting thing around politics and around political theory there as well. Political operatives will tell you, when you're running for office, like there's a window where people think this is a good idea, that something is policy already, or it's popular, or people generally think it's sensible. And that window, it moves up and down. There's stuff that's outside the window, people think that's a little radical, or think we could never do that, that's unthinkable. Here's the thing, the Overton window has moved rapidly in the last couple of years in ways that we never even thought. 3-4 years ago, would you have thought mass telecommuting to work was possible? It's like, no, that's for that, Silicon Valley crowd out in California. Or how about mass online education? It's like, no, we could never do that. Kids need to be in classrooms. Like, well, yeah, they kind of do, but they kind of don't. How about ordering everything from Amazon and from grocery stores, supplies, things, there. All this stuff that we never thought was possible, or we thought, well, maybe, but all of a sudden now it's very real. Here's the thing. Maybe some of you have this wild and crazy idea that you've been sitting on for a while, and I hope maybe you do. And maybe it's like, now's the time to maybe revisit that, because the Overton window has moved further and faster than you probably even imagine. So something that you thought, my community's just not ready for that. maybe now's the time to dust off that idea and bring it back out and see if there is some interest, because I bet that maybe it's a little more possible than you thought it was just a few years ago. Next. There's a lot of pent-up demand and a lot of pent-up energy. The fact that you guys are out here today on a Wednesday, it's like because you're excited about the city, you're excited about being out there. And those folks, those co-creators I was talking about, they've been working on stuff, but yeah, they've been kind of sidelined as well. There is a lot of pent-up energy, and hopefully we can channel that energy and that enthusiasm into some really positive ways. That is a unique opportunity. That, again, that's one of those sort of positive outcomes from COVID is now we have this energy and we're ready to sort of unleash it there on our city. Next. Last, I will say this. This has become sort of personally meaningful to me in the last few years, is this idea of doing small things with great love. You know, on any given day, we have dozens, hundreds of things that we have to do. And most of them are just like ticking a box. Like, okay, I got to do this, ticking a box. I get it there. But sometimes when we have the opportunity, when we have a moment, and we can take that moment, and we can do something with a little bit more attention, a little bit more love there, it just feels different. It feels better. And we, as the people, maybe the beneficiaries of that, of somebody else's effort, somebody else's above and beyond effort, we are the beneficiaries of that. And let's pay it forward in that sense. So like, let's take that time, something along that's going to cross your desk, you could just take it and move it on. But maybe you look at it and go, we could do a little bit better. How about if we add this and this? And it's like, okay, job well done. There's tons of little things that we could be doing tomorrow as we're talking about making a better city. And again, that should be the goal, a better, more interesting, more lovable city there. They talk about livable cities, lovable cities, walkable cities. Somebody said, you guys have had Jeff Speck here, he's a friend of mine. Great stuff. All of those are good goals. But I think the goal should be a lovable city, the kind of city that grabs you by the heart and refuses to let you go. It's the kind of city I want to live in. It's the kind of city I know you guys want to live in. But that's the kind of city that actually has to be built in a different way. And it starts when folks like you decide you want to get in the game and bring whatever particular interest, whatever particular talent, whatever particular passion you have for the place there, and bring that to the table and make that part of the conversation, make that part of the overall mix that is going on in the greater city of Albuquerque that maybe starts in your own backyard. So thank you very much for the opportunity there. Thank you, ABQ. One more. Thank you very, very much.
Coming to grab the mic. Thank you. One more time for Peter Kageyama. He's the city love guy. Let me make sure these things still work. They still work. Can I see them out there? There they are. Okay, yeah, you're going to need that. You're going to need that for the rest of the summit. So shout out to MRA for driving, and thanks for give it one more time for the chemo staff and our tech folks that are making sure you can hear and see us. But yeah, the downtown summit for MRA for driving, not just tonight, but driving Peter's presentation, but driving in the whole summit. I'm also like, weird word guy. Like I love the notion of a downtown summit, right? Because the summit's usually at the top of something. Anyway, that's for free. You guys get to keep that one. I would also like to speak to the idea, one of my favorite things that Peter said in his remarks was around the cost of ugly, the cost of boring. For us people who have or are still working in city government, that also means the cost of doing nothing. Those are the same costs, right? And so just, I don't know, that one hit me. It hit me. I'm gonna take that one with me. Just a few things, final remarks. Peter's going to be signing copies of his book out in the lobby, so make sure that you do that. Take some of Peter home with you. Please stay for the happy hour. That's that ticket again, that love note. If you write on it, like something. I also have a career as a classroom teacher. The only way to get the assignment wrong is to not try. So write something on it. Give it to your bartender, you'll get a reward, and we can't give out drinks in schools. Here, at least if you do the assignment, No, anyway, don't listen to me. That's why I'm not elected, right? Forget it. The teachers would appreciate it, though. Remember to jot down your love note as your drink, take it, and then also to snap a photo outside in front of it should be done by now. Wimper works fast, but make sure that you do that, as Peter also talked about, those things that kind of virality, not the corona virality, but the way things go viral in the social sector is when you like take a picture of it. And then you have, like the Blue Bear, remember the Blue Bear? You're gonna take a picture of Wemfer's mural because, sometimes we don't just paint walls as a city, we paint art on walls as a city, and you're gonna put hashtag love DTABQ for downtown ABQ, back to me being an acronym guy at the end of the day. And so I think that's everything. Is that everything, Karen? Karen, thank you. Yep, I think that's everything. Thank you all for spending time with us. Like I said, the summit is not over. This is just the beginning, just kind of like the kickoff thing. And if you want to be a co-creator with me, let me see them hearts one more time. We can do this. We can do this together. So I'm gonna do what I do. Came in with a poem. I'm gonna go out with a poem. Can I go out with a poem? Is that all right with y'all? Whew. I'm glad. It's nice when people say yes. When you ask that question, people say no. It gets real awkward. Let me tell you what. So I was happy to bring a relatively newer piece in the beginning that connects to downtown, but my kind of go-to about how much I love this city is the one I'm gonna read now. And the ABQ Manifesto poem actually has a video associated with it. Shout out to Jack Flux and the We Are the City crew. I think that poem is getting close to 10 years old, so yeah. But it was filmed right here on 4th Street, right there on 4th in what used to be the 4th Street Mall. And so, yeah. It's weird the things you get inspired to write when you're just hanging out downtown. So here we go. We be a bucket of Rio, 2 handfuls of mesa, an open box full of God. Between the sandias and the volcanoes, our name is mud. We be close enough to heaven and clear enough of sky for the Creator to mouth us alive. We make dirty the new immaculate. We make car washes obsolete. We be urban farm hands for rural app developers. Be the best brewed beans and microbrew in a 6 mesa radius, in 100 mañana radius. We be coffee shop crushes and conversations. We be the creme de la creatives. We powder with pollen and monsoon foundation for makeup. On the rare occasion that we make up only when the winter white tablecloths the mesa. We be aquifers of black golds. We be the same colored souls. We be an open heart horizon, transplant land grants and colonial survivors. We be of the earth and out of this world. At the same time, we inherit this pride, this keep it real estate of intellectual property. We be QUERQUEA. We be sunsets so beautiful they paint themselves on the edge of the earth. We be where dreams come to live and retire. We be artists making careers out of thin air. We be made up words like Sunport. Because stars gotta land somewhere, because the center of the universe has got to be somewhere, because even the sun has a vacation home in New Mexico. We be made upwards, not downwards like mountain tops. We be adobe inside and out. We might look like armored vegetarians, but on the inside, we be the coolest gatas you'll ever meet. We be entrepreneurs and doers. Somewhere between bright idea and done, we be Chile by blood and balloons for lungs. We be no I in team, but 2 in familia. We be full moon in photosynthesis, not a cloud to be found. We be radiant, worshiping the sky with hand signs that 505, letting our unidentified flying cousins know that we out here fighting for our light. We be loco, we be loco, we be lobos singing to the night. We are your favorite city's favorite city, the heart of the Southwest, leaning just a little to the left in New Mexico's chest. Thank you guys, have a good night.